Welcome to another episode of Respect Her Game. I'm Laura Stickles, that's Annabelle Hasselback, and it's been a couple of big weeks in the WNBA here. Not only have awards been given out, but the playoffs are starting, and to sort of get us into all of that, we're having Alexa Philippou on in about 20 minutes here. Not only is she a classmate and friend of mine from Stanford, but she's also one of the best reporters covering women's college basketball and the WNBA right now. She works for ESPN. I'm so excited to get to catch up with her, talk to her about her journey, and it's going to be a full circle moment for me as well, getting to chat with one of my classmates and have her on the show, but also get to learn a lot about the teams that are competing in the playoffs. But first, Annabelle, we got to catch up because last week we were talking about the red bandana game. You were telling me just about how much that means to the BC student body and just kind of, what Wells' story really means to the entire BC community. But BC competed in the game. They beat Michigan State 23-19 in a come from behind game in the pouring rain. You were there and you rushed the field. How did that game unfold?
Thank you. I love to talk about Boston College, so this was super fun for me. And you're right, it was the red bandana game, and I'm going to address what people are probably thinking. Annabelle, why did you storm the field? You don't even go there anymore, okay? I know.
Well, also, not only do you not go there anymore, but Michigan State was not ranked.
Exactly.
Yes.
Okay, there are a few factors. However, I have two responses to that, okay? Number one, it was the red bandana game. So no one else in the Boston College community is questioning storming the field. This game carries a ton of weight. There is so much emotion in this game. We had a young woman come and sing America the Beautiful during the middle of the game. It was so powerful. The team had a Wells flag that said Wells, run out of the tunnel to start the game. So high emotions. This game is very special in a lot of ways. So regardless if we were playing a ranked opponent or not, and we won this game under the lights at Alumni Stadium, in the rain, we're storming the field. I don't care what age you are, you're doing it. And then two, it's fun. It's fun to storm the field. Those are some of the memories that I have, whether it was a basketball game or a football game. Those are the memories that I've taken with me throughout my life, is the times when I've gotten to storm the field. So any chance that you get to do it, you might as well do it.
I totally agree. I think I only stormed the field once when I was at Stanford. I think it was in 2017, so my senior season, and I think it was Notre Dame. I literally went back to check. I was like, when did Stanford beat a ranked opponent? Because I vaguely remember rushing the field, but for some reason I'm like, why does that not stick with me? And I think like at that point, Stanford just like wasn't competing really for any, they weren't going to make it to the Rose Bowl that season. Like I felt like there just wasn't as much passion within the student body, but it does feel like the Boston College student body right now is really bought in. How would you describe just the energy around the team right now?
Yeah, you are so right, and bought in is almost like an understatement. They are on fire. The Boston College campus has this crazy buzz around them, and even the football players after the game themselves were talking about it. Louis Bond was like, there's such a buzz. All these players are talking about the buzz that's going on. And Coach O'Brien, like, credit to him, he's the one who's really advocating for the students. He's like, you know what? These kids work really hard in school. Is what he said after the game. He's like, these kids work really hard in school during the week. We want to give them something. We want to entertain them and bring them this joy and this spirit on Saturday. So fun to just be a part of that. I almost felt like I was being spoiled because I haven't been there all fall. And I was like, man, I get to live in this. I get to accept this excitement. And there were dozens of young men with their shirts off, like throwing them like towels in the air. And I was thinking during the game, when in my BC experience have I ever seen over like 3 guys with their shirts off, going like crazy man all over the stands? And that's just fun. It's fun to be a part of. It's fun to have kids with their face painted, going all out. Pre-game shows from the radio club. Like, this is a new era for Boston College in sports in general. And people got to get on the train now because it's not stopping. And there was a Fairfield student standing in front of me at the game. And this kid, I didn't know that initially. And this kid turns around and he's trying to talk to me to get the fans going. And, we got to do a BC chant. And I'm like, yeah, man, like, how about, go BC, put some points on the board. That's like kind of the classic BC chant. And we're just talking, and somebody asked him, what grade are you in? He was like, oh, I don't even go here. I go to Fairfield. and in my head, I'm like, you know what? That's awesome. We have a fan who doesn't even go to Boston College who's trying to get the fan zone going. So that sums it up for Boston College when you have people who are outside the Boston College community just really diving into what Coach O'Brien is doing at Boston College.
How do you think the team is playing right now?
I mean, come on. That was a huge game. We needed to win. It was exciting back and forth. Tommy Castellanos and Lewis Bond connected to get that game-winning touchdown. And then having 3 interceptions and our defense step up, they're on a really good track.
Okay, well, you guys play Western Kentucky next week. I actually think that's a trap game because it's a group of 5 opponent, but they just beat Toledo, and Toledo is one of the best group of 5 teams. They're probably one of the best teams in the MAC. So I think you guys are going to have to be ready for that game because you can't be caught sleeping. I know Bill O'Brien won't let your team be caught sleeping, but no, I think that could be a tough game. So I think if you guys win next week, I think you'll be back in the top 25. You're receiving votes this week, so you were close. You're right on the border. I think there were 2 teams that received 1 or 2 teams before you that received maybe a couple more votes than you guys. But yeah, I think you have a chance to be back in the top 25 if you win. So I'm excited for BC. Like we said, we've adopted them as our college football team of Respect Her Game. Stanford, by the way, they did win this week. I didn't get to watch because I was sitting at the mechanic until 11 p.m. Don't ask me. But anyways.
We're looking for a new mechanic for Laura.
Yeah, we are.
Car mechanic.
But in any case, they got their first ACC win. So getting the ACC era kicked off in good fashion. So that's always fun. But before we got to move on, though, because we need to talk about the WNBA. There was a lot of football going on this weekend, as we've discussed. College football on Saturday. I was dialed into the NFL on Sunday. I did the chat podcast, so I had Red Zone on. I was taking notes on all of the 1 p.m. games. We're here recording during the 4 p.m. games. And you know what I didn't get to watch? I didn't get to watch the first game in the WNBA playoffs. I didn't get to watch Caitlin Clark's debut because I was tuning into those games. And I think that, yes, was it a choice of mine to watch those games instead of the WNBA? Kind of just because, I was doing chat. But even still, I probably still would have put the NFL on because I watch the NFL on Sundays. The NFL owns Sundays, whether you like it or not. They've done such a good job marketing that day.
And Mondays and Thursdays.
But especially Sundays.
Yes.
They've done such a good job marketing NFL on Sunday. And the other leagues, the NBA, Major League Baseball, they figured it out. They don't put their marquee games on Sunday during the football season. And it was not smart for the WNBA to do the same. I wanted to watch Caitlin Clark's debut, but at the end of the day, you have to make a decision what you're going to choose to watch. But it shouldn't be that. It shouldn't be a choice between deciding, should I watch Caitlin Clark's playoff debut? Should I watch the first round of the WNBA or should I watch the NFL? You shouldn't have to choose. The WNBA should have put that game starting on a Monday or starting on a Tuesday. I just thought it was poor scheduling by the WNBA. What were your thoughts?
And thankfully, there's multiple games, right? There's multiple games in round 1, so we're going to be able to watch these games midweek. And I think there is a challenge, right? There's so many pro sports, and there's only so many prime time slots. So what's going to fall, right? It's probably going to go NFL, WNBA, just by the nature of the audiences. But I'm excited to be able to have these Tuesday, Wednesday games to look forward to. And thankfully, there is more coverage on the WNBA, just on social media, right? However we want to say, yes, we've been covering the WNBA forever, but there hasn't been as much social media attention. Just in my own personal feed, I'm seeing more WNBA content this last year than I ever have before. And so say you do miss it, they are posting and they are getting things out so that people tune in and know where to find the games and know when they're being played and who's playing in the highlights. So I think that's the plus to this and that side. But yeah, it is exciting now that we're in this playoff season.
Definitely. I just would have rather have had that game be on a Wednesday or a Tuesday or even a Monday. I can switch back and forth between Monday Night Football and the WNBA, but when you have Red Zone on, you're just locked in for 7
Red
8
Zone,
hours.
you can't stop. Your eyes are just doing that back and forth thing.
Yeah, exactly. So WNBA, please don't put another big marquee playoff game on a Sunday, just for my sake and for I think a lot of other people's. But we got to talk about our finals picks. I know you revealed what yours were before the games. I kept mine to myself. So
I know you were being.
I know I was being cagey, but you go first.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna kick it off with one of my finals choices. I got the Las Vegas Aces. Okay, and I'm really betting on Asia Wilson. When you have the MVP on your team, it's kind of like having a cheat code. When we had Charlotte North on our team in the year we won the national championship, my freshman year, it was like having a cheat code. When you have the best player on your team, it's kind of like your go-to. Okay, we have a problem, boom, who's our go-to? And she has really stepped up for this team. And I also think there's a lot of power in having such a humble leader who is selfless and really embodies that all for one mentality, right? This is a woman who has shown that, like, yes, she's getting all these individual successes, but she's really pointing to her teammates and who she's able to lean on and depend on. And yeah, I mean, in the first game against the Storm, she had 21 points, 5 block shots, and this is coming right after she gets announced as the MVP. So you can see a lot of people, sometimes they sign a big contract, they have a huge success or a huge accomplishment, and maybe they go one or two ways. You either lose your humility and you kind of take your foot off the gas, or you go for it and you're like, yeah, that's who I am, and that's exactly what she did.
Yeah, I just want to clarify as well, we're recording this on a Tuesday. So if for some reason any of these teams that we pick are eliminated by the time this comes out, that is why.
I'm staking my ground with Las Vegas.
Yes. So actually from the top bracket, I also picked Las Vegas as well. They've got the 3-peat on the line. That's extra motivation for them. Obviously, they have the best player in the world in Asia Wilson as well. And I know they got off to kind of a slowish start. I think they were 6-6 in their first 12 games of the season, but they've won 9 of their last 10. They're hot. They're on a roll. Actually, now I believe they've won 10 of their last 11 because we're now 1 game into the playoffs. And I think they'll beat the Liberty in the semis. And I know the Liberty are the top-seeded team coming into this. And I know the Liberty are 3-0 against Las Vegas this season. But I think in a 5-game series, I think Las Vegas is going to figure it out.
And they have winning experience, right? Like, they're defending a championship, and that's something that's you can't really replicate that in practice. You can't replicate those intense end-of-the-game moments, games on the line. What are you going to do? They know what it takes to win, and I think that is really going to give them the edge in this playoff run.
Who's your other pick?
My other pick is the Suns, okay?
I love that. A local pick.
Local pick. I had to do it. And you know what I really loved from them when they played against the Indiana Fever was their hustle plays. This is something that you don't just come out and play fast. It's part of your game plan, and that's exactly what we saw for them. They were pushing the ball down the court. They were beating the Fever down the court, getting those easy buckets, getting those easy layups, and they were crashing the paint. I think the Sun outscored the Fever 50-36 in Game 1 in the paint, and 18-9 in fast breaks, 9-7 on second chance points. And right, that doesn't just happen. Like, that's part of their game plan. And when it comes into the playoffs, you need every little bit that you can get. You need every edge that you can get. And so I'm taking them because I love that, them coming off hot right there. And Mabry, she came off the bench, hits 27 points, a career high. I think she set a record for like most points coming off the bench in a single postseason game, and which is so good because it's so hard to stop players who are coming off the bench, because you're preparing as a starting lineup, you're preparing for those top 5, right? Okay, who are the threats? We have the point guard, the center, your X factor, somebody's got to be on, the corner 3. And then you're not really worrying too much about who's coming off the bench. I know, at least on our scouting reports in college, you'd be like, okay, and next up players. Like, what's the one thing you got to know about the next up players? Okay, well, here we go, Mabry. This next up player is on fire.
I totally agree. I think the Connecticut Sun are a team that people are sleeping on. And I know that people actually had the Fever as a team that they thought could, be an upset run or somebody that could make a good run to the finals because of Caitlin Clark, obviously, and the way that they've been able to put it together more towards the second half of the season. But at the end of the day, I think the Fever are a younger team. I think the Connecticut Sun have that experience, and I think that they do have the potential to make it to the finals. They've also done it before. They were there in 2019 and 2022. They put good runs together, so I think that they're a good pick for you. Although I went ahead and I picked the Minnesota Lynx. They are a team that I don't think people were expecting to play this well at the beginning of the season, but they have really put it together. They're playing really well as a team. I think that's what everybody is really saying about the Lynx this season. They have such great team chemistry, and they don't have any huge stars on their team or big rookies, so I feel like they didn't get quite the same amount of attention as some of the other teams during this year for people that are more casual WNBA fans. But they have Nafisa Collier on the team. She's great on both ends of the floor. She was second in MVP voting this season. She probably had her best season this year. And she's probably the second best player in the world. So I think the Minnesota Lynx...
That helps.
Yes, exactly. So, I think the Minnesota Lynx, I think they're going to end up playing Aces in the finals, but I think that they're going to win. I think they just have that motivation of the three-peat on the line. They've been there before. They've been able to do it. And, yeah, they have such a great leader on the team.
Yeah, okay, well, we'll get two Aces fans, I guess.
Two Aces. We're two Las Vegas fans. Okay, but speaking of one of the best players in the world and somebody that's going to lead her team to the finals in A'ja Wilson, she was also named MVP this season.
In her fire red suit outfit. Come on.
Oh my gosh, that outfit was so sick. I know we were trying to like collect some fits for a potential new segment of Fit Check. I don't think we're going to fit it in this week, but that suit she was wearing was sick.
It was the perfect outfit for the occasion. Right.
Yes.
And I think that's kind of the hardest thing is you can find a lot of cute things. You can find a lot of baller, stylish pieces. But like knowing what you're doing for it, I mean, come on. Like walking into the game, even in some of her interviews, you could tell she was glammed up for it. I loved it. I thought it was perfect.
Yeah, so she was named a unanimous MVP. And Caitlin Clark, she actually finished 4th in MVP voting. And she was also a unanimous Rookie of the Year. And I thought it was interesting because both players kind of had different reactions to winning their respective awards. A'ja was, as we've seen in the past, when she hit 1,000 points, she was so emotional. And I loved the way that she addressed her team afterwards. It clearly meant a lot to her. And we have that video right here. So take a listen to it, and then we'll break it down after.
Hello. I'm going to put you on speakerphone real quick.
Oh.
It's for A'ja. Hold on.
Oh, this is something.
All right, go ahead.
All right. Do we have someone named A'ja Wilson in the house tonight?
Yes.
Hi, A'ja. So, A'ja, we have to stop meeting like this. If I think back to 2020 in the bubble and the wubble, I walked into that room and handed you the MVP trophy. And guess what? You are the 2024.
It's honestly crazy how this all works because this morning I was really thinking about what I could do for you guys. So that's when I was like, you know what, I'm gonna write letters or just things to you guys individually. And I guess God wants me to share with you guys in person. Sydney! I don't think I've ever got a chance to tell you this, but you molded me into the leader that I am from year one. I say a lot of time I try to be a voice for the voiceless, but you're honestly a voice for me. And sometimes I don't feel like I'm being heard. So thank you for being that. AC. And AC, when it comes to somebody that can hold me accountable, but at the same time, hug me and love me in times that I need, it's you. And thank you so much for letting me know that it's okay to not be okay. But at the same time, the grind and the mentality of I'm never going to let the enemy win is something that I admire so much about you. I hope you guys know that this trophy is nothing without y'all. So thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. This truly means a lot.
Okay, so I love what A'ja did here. I love that she thanked all of her teammates individually. She said that she had written out different thank yous that she was planning to send to them just to tell each of them how much they mean to her. But I'm glad she was able to do it in person. Like she said, it was God telling her that she needed to do it in person. And no, that was just such a special moment. But what I also appreciated about it was clearly these awards do mean a lot to her. It means a lot to her that she does get this kind of recognition. And I think that's okay. And I think also something for A'ja, she's, I believe, 28. She was drafted in 2018, and she's been around this league for longer. And so she has that kind of history with her. And I think sometimes when you're a rookie or when you're younger, you're so worried about making it seem as if those individual accomplishments matter to you. But clearly they do matter to her. And But she doesn't make it about herself in the process. She makes it about her team while still being grateful for the fact that she won the award. So I don't think she could have done it any better.
And she didn't know that it was unanimous until she did a Good Morning America interview. And the woman was like, oh, you won unanimously. She was like, what? And she was like, yes, congrats, like you didn't know. And she did give herself like a couple little snaps. So you can tell, yes, it does mean something internally to her, but she does have such a selfless approach to the game, and just talking about her teammates in the way that she does. She said at another time that the good team is like a good buffalo chicken dip, which I thought was such a funny way to put it. I was like, I love buff chick dip too. So she is so funny, and it's fun to cheer for someone when that's their reaction, right? Like when you can tell that it emotionally affects them, because it means that you care, right? And like when you said, like you're getting older in your career, things get harder. Everything is harder. It's harder on your body. It's harder mentally. She is very open about the mental struggles too that she's had. She says, some days I feel depressed. Some days I have anxiety, and like that's outside of basketball. And I hope that, with my basketball career, my legacy that I want to leave is that people know that I'm just a human too. Like, yes, I have all these accomplishments, but I'm just a human. And so I think it's really fun to be able to cheer for someone who is showing that. And it's what we saw from her college and being coached under Dawn Staley, right? Like that is one of the most selfless coaches in all of women's basketball. I will never forget after the 2022 national championship, Staley got up there and she was like, the very first thing that came out of her mouth was, I want to show off all week at practice, being all the other opponents that we were, because they were a huge part of our success. So it makes total sense the way that Asia is responding.
Absolutely. And meanwhile, Caitlin Clark took a sort of different approach when she was asked about it during a press conference. This is what she said about finishing 4th in MVP voting.
This is not the playoffs, but officially the 4th most MVP votes. What does that recognition mean to you, and is that also something that you could have foreseen at the start of the season?
I mean, it's cool, but at the same time, I don't really care. My life is very unaffected by that. I'm just going to try to go out there and help my team. Obviously, our goal is to get to the playoffs, but I have a belief that we can come in here and we can win this series, but approaching it one game at a time. So I think that's where my focus is, but obviously it's pretty night and day from where we first started. So I feel like that's something to be proud of and to find confidence in, and yeah.
So clearly Caitlin was very stoic. She acted as if she really didn't care. Maybe she really doesn't care. And I think you have to keep in mind as well, this was a press conference versus like a private meeting with your teammates. But the one thing that I will say, and I think it's tough when you're a rookie, especially because like Caitlin already had a target on her back for a lot of this season, and you don't want to make it seem as if these like individual accomplishments matter to you. But I also think it's okay if they do matter to you. Like, I think it's okay. Like, this is sports. It's competition. I know it's a team sport at the end of the day, but individual competitions matter too, and it's individual competitions which can fuel people to be better. So I think going forward, like I would, if Caitlin feels as if it does mean something to her, I wouldn't want her to be disingenuous, obviously, but I think it's okay for her to let loose a little bit and say it does mean a lot to her, but also kind of do what Asia does, like make it about the team as well, but also you can say that it matters.
In her mind, she's got a bigger target, and that's winning a championship, right? This wasn't something that she was able to do in college. She was ended on those, tough losses. So she has a lot of those individual successes, and you're right. I don't think that she doesn't care about them. I think they do definitely mean something. You're in a public environment when you're being asked those questions, but she wants to win a title. She wants a ring. That's the number one thing on Caitlin Clark's agenda right now, and they're not favored to win, right? Neither of us picked them. So we'll see how that ends up going, but that's probably the bigger thing on her mind right now.
Oh, clearly it's the bigger thing on her mind. I mean, that's what she was talking about. And I think too, just to be clear, neither way to approach it is wrong. I think just both players did it differently, and it's just a matter of being honest with yourself and speaking what's really on your heart. Okay, so there's clearly been a lot of stars in the WNBA this season. There's also been some stars on the NFL sidelines as well. One of them you really wanted to talk about, Pookie and Jet. If you're not familiar, they've become TikTok famous for Jet telling his wife Pookie that she looks absolutely fire tonight during all of her get ready with
You gotta say it in the voice though.
You do it.
No, I don't.
No, see, if you're telling me to do it, you gotta do it.
Neither of us are doing it.
Anyways, he always tells his wife Pookie, I think her real name is Campbell, that she looks absolutely fire, and they've gone absolutely viral on TikTok and Instagram as well. And I think it's really interesting seeing the NFL use these different media personalities that are more geared towards women and younger women, and bringing them to different NFL games and having them do their TikToks and stuff there to try to like appeal to a more younger female audience. Like, I'm not necessarily a huge fan of Pookie and Jet myself, but I can see what the NFL is trying to do here.
And you know of them, right? You don't have to be a big fan, but at least you know of them. You know that they're trending. They're probably on your feed and your algorithm on TikTok and Instagram, and that's what the NFL is trying to do. They're being very strategic with this. We all see what's going on. The NFL was just dying to tweet, Pookie is looking absolutely fire tonight, right? Like, they were dying to put out that tweet. And they're trying to bring in those new audiences, right? They kind of saw the boom that happened with Taylor Swift in the female audience, and that's probably what they're trying to do now. And it is fun. It is fun to see, okay, who's at the game this week and what's going on. And it's a good job by the Falcons. And I would also say it's going along with their international efforts. The NFL is making a huge push to grab new audiences all over the world, all over different demographics, but it's exciting when you see someone that you know of.
They also had Nikki Glazer on. She did a segment on Thursday Night Football. I'm not gonna lie, like, it was a little bit weird. I like the idea behind it, but I think they can make it better. I think like just her being on the actual like set, I just think it was a really tough ask. Like, she had to watch a game and then like make a set to perform on Thursday Night Football. That seemed really tough, but I like the idea. I want them to keep doing it. I just want them to like rework it and figure out a way where it seems a little bit more natural.
Definitely. It was a very interesting get.
Yes.
Hard on her part, so props to Nikki for being able to, pull that together, pull that commentary together. But yeah, I think there's a wide audience, and so that's why some humor isn't going to hit with different people. So I think that's a challenge, but you can tell that they're really trying to get new people to watch these games.
Who is the next celebrity that you want to see on the sidelines?
Who do I want to see? Alona Mar after Dancing with the Stars. I'm like, let's throw her into a cheerleading routine, based off of her latest performances. So I would love to see her. She is someone that I've really enjoyed following post-Olympics and all the new opportunities that she's gotten, and I think the NFL would love to use her. And, she has that physicality with her that's strong. Football is kind of similar to rugby. So it would be cool to see her maybe in an ad or something.
A lovely lady that I would like to see take the sidelines is Miss Peaches. She has taken social media by storm over the last, I don't know, when did Dave Portnoy adopt her? Like 4 months ago. I would love to see her on the sidelines. I think that would really get some people excited. I don't know how she would do within the chaos of a football game, but I'm sure she'd love it. She seems to love everything and love everybody. So that is the celebrity, dog celebrity but she's a female too, female dog celebrity that I would love to see on the sidelines.
Or me and Laura.
Or me, yeah, like pick us. We're celebrities.
Pick us. Yeah, we'll see. We'll just be there.
You've been on the sideline of an NFL game recently.
I have. It was fun. I was spotting one of the videographers, and she was like, okay, you ready to run? And I'm like, have my hair down, like I got sunglasses on. I'm like, yeah, like let's go. Like I thought it was a metaphoric phrase, ready to run. Oh no. We were full sprint down the Patriots sideline as I'm trying to protect her from getting hit. So it was fun, but you got to be aware when you're on those sidelines.
You can get run over. I did some radio sideline reporting for a college football team last season, and like you have to be careful. You have to be really aware the guys are not paying attention, and you can get run over. So be careful if you're on the sideline of any football game.
Media mayhem moment.
Yes, media mayhem moments for sure. Speaking of celebrities in my life, Alexa Philippou, she's one of them. She truly is one of the best reporters that I know. She's in college women's basketball and the WNBA. They're so lucky to have her covering that league. She's been so passionate about it for so long. When we graduated from Stanford, she went and covered UConn women's basketball for the Hartford Courant, and she just did it because she was passionate about it. And then over the past couple of years, we've seen women's basketball boom, and she's gotten to be part of that. She now works at ESPN. She's been there since 2022. She contributes to a lot of their women's basketball television news shows, as well as she's just a great reporter. She does some amazing features. So I'm so excited to have her on. So without further ado, here's Alexa Philippou. I am so honored to have Alexa Philippou on Respect Her Game this week. Not only is she a friend of mine and a former classmate of mine at Stanford, we actually worked at the Stanford Daily together, but she's also one of the best women's reporters, one of the best reporters in general covering women's basketball right now. So we're so lucky to have her on as the WNBA Finals are getting going. But truly, Alexa started my career because you were actually the person that brought me on, I think, to the Stanford Daily. You asked me to be the managing editor, the volume after you. So it's really full circle for me to have you on this show. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh my gosh. I'm so excited to be on and chat all these cool topics, but most importantly, just to be able to share this space with you after our humble beginnings at the Stanford Daily office and many late nights and, antics over there at the Daily. So I'm so excited to be on.
Yes, there were many all-nighters, that's for sure. And that's truly like where your career started. You started covering Stanford women's basketball when you were a student back in 2014, and then when you graduated in 2018, you started covering UConn women's basketball. So for you, what's it been like getting to cover women's basketball as it's really taken off here over the past couple of years?
Yeah, well, I think it's funny because right now in this moment, everyone is talking about how women's basketball is here, it's exploded, and this is the most excitement and popularity that there's ever been around the sport. But even starting covering it in 2018, 2019, there was a steady stream of momentum that was building even then. And we felt it each year with increased viewership on different games and attendance. Things were going in the right direction. And then obviously now with players like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese, Paige Beckers, Cameron Brink that are really ushering in this moment of real kind of explosive growth, it feels like this is the moment that so many people were waiting for, including people that have been, honestly covering the league and following the league well before I've been around. I mean, my coworker at ESPN who covers women's basketball, like it's so cool to hear him say like we've been waiting for this for really decades. And so it's really just special to see it all kind of come together in this moment this year around the college game, obviously now the WNBA. It means, there's a lot more interest, and it's cool to see what that also means like for our coverage at ESPN. I've never been more busy than this season and traveling and whatnot, but it's all really exciting when it all is going to result in more coverage for the game and more interest in that coverage, and people are really gravitating towards some of these stars and some of these young rookies in particular. So I hope that this is just the beginning of a really important moment, a great moment for the sport, and I think that's the direction we're headed.
Yeah, you said back in 2018, 2019, you started to feel the momentum really building, but then this year it took off. When was the moment for you where you were like, oh, this year feels different?
I think being, honestly, even starting in 2023 with the Final Four and seeing what those TV ratings looked like, because that was like the first year, I think it was like 9.9 million or something, where the Iowa LSU game had that kind of record number. And then, so that was like so extraordinary in of itself. And when you're at a Final Four, you're seeing these numbers come in and everyone's kind of talking about them even while you're there covering it or in the immediate aftermath of that. And so even like this year at the Final Four, we saw the numbers like throughout the whole tournament that were like really climbing. And I think that's like something that it's not just, I think, because of the ESPN thing, but just being able to see a number attached to like, you can like quantify interest in this way. That's one of the big ways. I mean, we were even like going into the national championship game saying like, oh, is this going to be like, are we going to hit 20 million? Like it's crazy to see that explosion in the numbers when it comes to viewership. But then I think too, it's also the casual conversations. And I have so many either family members or acquaintances or people I know or come across that maybe like they'll tell me like they didn't follow women's basketball before, but now they started to follow it. They know some of the big names like Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, Asia Wilson, and to see that change where it feels like it's becoming more of a part of like the cultural sports footprint. And there's so many times even throughout the summer where it felt like the WNBA was the topic of conversation in sports. And that just wasn't that wasn't the case in years past. So there's just little things like that, whether it was dominating the news cycle in some ways, or it was coming up in casual conversations, or then obviously like the TV numbers when you're able to see, like even now with some of these playoff games, like getting really good ratings too, that it's like all kind of coming together in this perfect storm.
Yeah, even some of the conversations on Twitter or on social media, not only are they happening, but they're also positive. When in the past, I felt like a lot of the conversations around women's sports and women's basketball that were happening on social media were often kind of had this like negative tone to them. And I love the fact that the conversations that are happening now are like promoting women's basketball is this is a really fun sport to watch, and it's coming from men and women. It's not just women that are watching women's sports now. So no, it's this year definitely, I agree, has just been remarkable, and it's like been such a long time coming for women's basketball. But something that I think is really interesting about you is you started covering women's basketball truly back in 2014 when you were covering Stanford women's basketball, which is a really great program in the country. And then you covered UConn for a couple years, and now you're at ESPN. You're not only covering college women's basketball but also the WNBA. So whether it be Dejanay Carrington at Stanford or some of the players that you covered at UConn, what's it been like to truly follow them throughout their career from college now to the pros?
Yeah, there's a few players like that where I kind of was covering them in college, and then not knowing that it was my women's basketball coverage in college ended up being a little bit more like off and on. It wasn't like consistent for 4 years, and I kind of like, I don't know if I have like a regret about that, but part of me wishes I did follow them for more consistent. How it was at the Daily. I've tried out news. I was covering other sports. I was an editor, so I was trying different things. But it is really cool to see. Dejanay was a player I overlapped with at Stanford, and I was actually talking with Lexi Hull from the Fever. I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, and I think I just missed her. But I was trying to, I was like, oh, I went to Stanford and I graduated in 2018. I think she must have started like that fall. So I think it's really special though, even like post my own college days, being able to follow someone like Paige Beckers is probably the best example I have of this, and some of her UConn classmates, because I started covering UConn back in 2019. So now, like, when there's players that went from UConn and now are in the league, it's really cool to see them take that next step and remember what their college days are like, and how sometimes, there's some ups and downs, right? And, people weren't sure what their pro prospects would be like. And so for Paige in particular, I have this, I've been like around her the most, probably because I wrote a big story on her comeback from her ACL tear. And so she's still in the college game now, but I think that's a person that she's the presumptive number one pick next spring. And so being able to one day see her get drafted, and then to see whatever team she lands on and the impact she's going to make in the league. And even just to see, being able to see an athlete's, speaking of ups and downs, like she had more ups and downs probably than anyone, coming back from 2 really serious knee injuries, and now coming, like, basically dominating the sport in that year that she's been back, and having this kind of like cultural resonance where she's like a really big deal. She's going to New York Fashion Week and whatnot. So I love seeing how they progress as people, as athletes. Sometimes they come out of their shells more, they become more talkative with the media, or you just get to know the people around them too, and like their families. So it is a really special part of this job, and that's something that I'm like very cognizant of, the fact that I've only been full-time covering women's basketball now since 2019. But if I'm 10 years from then, like say 2029, like it's going to be really cool to look back at all the other people I see kind of as they have that progression in their own careers and their own lives, like how I was able to kind of either capture that with my reporting or just kind of be a witness to it. So that's definitely an underrated part of this job, I'd say.
Yeah, nothing really replaces the relationships you build by being there like every single day for every practice, like you are for UConn. You live in Connecticut, so it's easy for you to get there and get to those practices. Nothing replaces that kind of relationship that you build with those players and the sorts of stories you're able to tell because of it. Going back to kind of the Bay Area, obviously our humble beginnings at Stanford, we know the Bay Area is such a great basketball town. So how do you think San Francisco is going to embrace its new WNBA team in 2025?
Oh, I am really excited for this Golden State team. One of the things that stuck out to me from the get-go was just the fact that the ownership is really committed. This is, of course, the Warriors' ownership, and they said right away that they wanted to win a WNBA title in 5 years, which might be a little aggressive and might not completely come into fruition, but seeing the resources that they're committing, seeing that this team's going to be playing in the Chase Center. They're going to have the Warriors' old practice facility in Oakland, which is obviously, NBA grade facility, state of the art. And also seeing the people that they've hired the former, one of the former kind of big shots at the Angel City NWSL club. And so I think they've really kind of approached this as like this is going to be a serious basketball and business venture. When we talk about the WNBA, we're also like wanting to see that the ownership groups that are coming in are going to make that investment in the players and really in the franchise. And so I think that's really going to drive this whole thing. And when it comes to the actual Bay Area kind of fan base, I think it's going to be great. I mean, this is a area that had a WNBA team back in the Sacramento Monarchs. Obviously, they haven't been around in a long time, so I'm sure there's some old fans that are excited to have the WNBA return. There's some maybe Stanford and Cal fans that are excited to have pro women's basketball in the Bay Area. And then I think just, you know, like we were talking about what you were saying, like women's sports now, it's not just like this niche thing that whether or not it's men or women or whoever, it doesn't have to be just kids. It can be adults. It's going to be everyone is going to want to show up at these games. And I think the Warriors are really committed to making this like a, you know, a nice like kind of like fan experience almost. Like that's something that I've heard the new Valkyries president talk about in particular. So just with that organizational commitment, the excitement of the fan base that's building there, I'm so excited. I've already been like, I am signing up to go cover that inaugural game. Like, definitely going to happen. No questions asked, right? Just plan on me being there. Is that cool?
No, I totally agree. And I think I saw like 17,000 season ticket deposits. It's amazing. So this Golden State team, they're debuting in 2025. And then I believe it's Toronto and Portland that are debuting in 2026. So now the league is up to 15 teams. At what point do you think the league is going to stop expanding?
The clear kind of benchmark that we've seen from the commissioner is 16 teams, ideally by 2027, 2028. And I think they're obviously on track to do that. Now that we're at 15, that means one more to go. So they do have to figure out this kind of nice balance between, you know, expansion and also the reasons behind that are the more teams that you're bringing into the league, it does kind of drive the league's growth, assuming that they're, you know, these are strong franchises you're building in. I do think you don't want to overexpand or you don't want to expand too quickly, perhaps. So I do think, you know, once they hit 16, the question is really what is the next kind of step with that? I think, you know, getting through this first round and seeing how things would go and that it's, you know, at the right level would be maybe important. And then I don't know if like long term, maybe another 5 to 10 years down the line, if they look at 20, I do feel like that could be a good number to maybe reach. I think the more markets you have in the WNBA, it would be for the better. You also want to make sure, you know, this is going to be talking about a lot more roster spots, and there's also the possibility of roster expansion. So how many more roster spots are they including? That's a factor that the league will have to kind of consider, and if that makes sense for, you know, the talent pool and for where things are at the sport. But I do think this goal of 16, at least through the next few years, is a good one to kind of see and suss out. But, you know, like I was saying before, the WNBA is looking for committed owners. So they're not just going to let someone in that, you know, is willy-nilly or doesn't want to make that actual financial investment and having a pro sports team. And that's a really interesting dynamic we're seeing now because some of these older ownership groups that are still in the league maybe haven't made the same sorts of financial investment that we're seeing, for example, you know, the Warriors and Golden State make by, you know, having these like really nice practice facilities or, you know, really nice arenas that they play in. So that's also this kind of tension that's going to have to be figured out when you think about kind of like the old guard of ownerships, the new guard of ownerships. And it is not perfectly, you know, that's a generalization. It's not like every older ownership group is in that category and every, you know, I don't want to make it seem that simple, but that is kind of something that we'll have to monitor as well as the league kind of gets into this new area of growth.
Yeah, something that I'm really excited about is just the fact that there's going to be able to, you know, more talent showcased every year during the draft and during those training camps. We see a lot of really great players get cut. So I'm excited for more players to be able to showcase their talents and be included on teams. But speaking of that great talent, we're seeing a lot of that right now in the finals. And I want to get your finals predictions. Obviously, we already know that it's going to be the Liberty and the Aces in one of the semifinals. This episode goes out on Thursday, so we might know who's already in the second semifinals. But who are your two teams that you would pick to make it all the way to the finals?
Yeah, the Liberty Aces being in a semifinal is just so unfair. But I'm also like really excited for it. I'm like, because this matchup is great, but is it really a semifinal matchup? So, well, I guess I'll go with the picks I made before the playoffs started last week, just to be consistent. I picked Liberty Lynx with the Liberty winning it all. But do I feel 100% confident in that? Like, absolutely not. I feel like I change my mind every 5 minutes on that one. I would not be surprised to see the Aces win. I mean, I saw them 3 games in 3 games in person towards the end of the regular season, and I thought they looked closer to the form of the Aces super team that we'd seen in recent years. So if they end up winning it all, or at least even getting through the finals, I would not be surprised. I was covering the game 1 of the Fever Sun series the other day, and the Sun looked really good, and they're actually a pretty good matchup for the Lynx. So I'm like, oh, well, maybe should I have picked them to lose to the Lynx? Like, maybe I should have picked them to go to the final. So I'll say Liberty Lynx, with Liberty winning it all. I think they've been the best team all year, and have the pieces, they have the depth, and the improvement on the defensive end to really take home that title this year, and that's why I went with them. But now I'm already, I'm clearly having second guessing like all of my picks and all of my decision making. So that's just kind of par for course, but it means it's exciting and it's open. And
Okay, I want to ask you a little bit about the Sun, actually. This being a New England podcast, obviously the Connecticut Sun played in TD Garden, so we're making them Boston's team for this playoff run. But what would it take for the Connecticut Sun to get to the finals?
Yeah, so I think first off, starting with getting past the Fever, again, that might be decided by the time this airs, but their defense is their identity, so they're going to have to continue to really be at their best at that end of the floor, and they thought they really did that on Sunday in Game 1, holding that team to just 69 points, I think it was. So if they're able to continue with that, and really that would apply to the semifinals too. The Minnesota Lynx, if that's the team they end up facing, are a team that's really good on both ends, but playing to their identity defensively is, that's like bare minimum what they have to do. But then one of the things about that Sun team is that sometimes offensively they can have lulls, or they're not as consistent, or they brought in this player, Marina Mabry, who's this really dynamic guard who can shoot the 3 ball, she can facilitate. I think she's going to have to be really big for them to really get over that hump and get the job done, winning their first title too, because they're at times a team that just doesn't have that offensive punch, or especially from the backcourt. So Marina coming off the bench and be able to provide that like she did in Game 1 on Sunday, I think would be huge. I definitely think this is also a team that thrives when they're underestimated and thrives when they feel like they're overlooked, and tends to surprise people. I mean, they went to the finals twice in the past 5 seasons, and both times when they made the finals, it was kind of this surprise run. So again, it's like there's just that part of me that's like, oh my God, is this another version of that? Are they just going to continue to kind of get to these places where people may not have expected them? But of course, this is a team too that has not won a title. Their championship window, they will say, is closing, because they have their big 3, Alyssa Thomas, DeWanna Bonner, Brianna Jones, are all free agents after this season. So they really want to win a championship now, and they know that this is the year to do it. And that's a huge motivating factor if you're in that group. So if your Sun fans are listening, or you're new to the Sun as a basketball team, I hope you watch, and maybe they'll put on a good show for you and make a deep run.
Okay, last question, and then we'll let you go. I know a lot of the listeners that listen to this show, I mean, they're young, they're early in their careers. They're either still in college or they've just graduated. A few of them have reached out to me and said that they, love the advice that we give on this show. So something that I'm curious about for you is, what's something that you wish you knew when you were starting back at the Stanford Daily, when you were 18 years old, when you were doing a million things? What's something that you wish you knew back then that you can tell our listeners so they're a step ahead?
In a positive way, I think I actually had something right in the fact that I spent so much time at the Daily, and I kind of prioritized that over school in a lot of stretches of my college career. So I feel like in some ways that's a good thing I did kind of figure out. And I'd say, as a piece of advice, like, if you are drawn to something that you think, I mean, it's a passion, but also could be, your future career, then, like, obviously don't maybe completely ignore school, but kind of pour yourself into that and spend your time there and really throw yourself into that activity. Well, it might not be journalism for you, but for me it was, and I think that obviously paid dividends. But I always joked I majored in the Stanford Daily and then minored in political science at Stanford. So it worked out okay, right? But I think in terms of something I wish I didn't know, or I wish I knew at the time, I wish I kind of had this sense of like, I don't need to have everything figured out right now. Kind of like that idea of being present when you're in college, and obviously nothing's ever the same like after you leave college or even early in your career. Just like there is a lot that you're trying to figure out as you're entering adulthood, but just not feeling like you need to have it all figured out like right away. I think that's something that is natural for people to want to do. And obviously like you want to have stability and you want to have a job and, be making a salary and all that. But you don't have to necessarily be like where you want to be 10 years from now, like at this moment. I think I'm still actually working in that in some ways. Like, there's certain things that I wish kind of already would come into fruition or would be easier that might be 10 years from now, but they might not be right now. And just having that faith that I will get there or I will figure it out between now and then. And maybe there's not like this exact timeline that it comes down to, but that there's going to be a progression, and just having faith that that's part of the process. God, trust the process. Am I really going to say that? But basically, I mean, there is something to that, right? So kind of being where your feet are at, I think, though, is a powerful thing, and kind of taking in what you're getting in those moments and believing that it's going to help you kind of tackle whatever is next, whether or not it's in your career or in your life, I think is something that I probably could have done a better job of understanding when I was younger, and I probably still could fully internalize that now as a full-grown adult. But hopefully that piece of advice will help some people that are getting started in their careers too.
I love both of those messages. First of all, yes, I totally agree. If you're in college, pour yourself into work experiences, internships. Classes are great, but the more real life experience you get, the better off you're going to be after college. And then secondly, yes, you have to trust the process. Everyone is on their own journey. We've both gone completely different routes and we started in the same place. So yes, everyone's journey is different. And Alexa, I just want to thank you again so much for coming on during what I know is a really busy time for you. But truly your passion for women's basketball is really inspiring, and you loved this sport and you were invested in it before so many other people were. So I know it's been really fun for me to get to see your career take off and see all the successes that you've had.
Oh, well, I appreciate you having me on, and I love seeing you kill it too and doing your thing. So I'm just like so grateful that, from our days at the Stanford Daily to now, and that we're both in journalism and being able to kind of talk about our shared experiences or talk about just the struggles of this industry too. It's so like great to have someone to be able to do that with, that, we both started in, the same place and had these, aspirations and be able to kind of keep the hard work going too. So thank you for having me on, and I'm just so awesome. Like, it's so great to see you do your thing too, and to be part of your space on this show. So thank you for having me.
It was so great to get Alexa on during what I know is a super busy time of year for her with the WNBA Finals. I know she's probably getting prepped right now for college women's basketball as well. But we're going to dive right into our wins of the week because we're running out of time here. And mine is WNBA themed as well. It's the Golden State WNBA team that's coming in 2025, I believe, is their inaugural season. They sold 17,000 season tickets, which is incredible. Like, that's just like on par with I think that's ties the Indiana Fever for like the most season tickets sold. So, I mean, I just know that the Bay Area, having lived there for a while, is just such a great basketball town in general. And it's awesome to see that they're already getting that kind of support for that team.
Proud Cali girl.
Yes.
That's awesome. Okay, my win of the week, I'm going the Bengals-Commanders game. Big W in the third quarter. Score was 21-13. Jaden Daniels. This is going to be a trivia question at some point. He throws his first NFL touchdown to who? offensive lineman Trent Scott, number 73, on the goal line. This was so fun for me to see when the big guy gets the touchdown. I literally audibly laughed, and I was alone watching the game. So it was so fun. He had a fun little touchdown dance, and just exciting for him because you don't get the ball that often when you're an offensive lineman, and to have that moment on a huge stage on Monday Night Football, very excited for him.
Okay, so in this situation, who would get the game ball? Or the touchdown ball?
It is such a good question. That is such a good question. And I don't know. I think you got to give it to the lineman because Daniels is probably going to throw more touchdown passes, right? It's going to come. So I think you got to give it to Scott.
See, I agree with that. But Jaden Daniels said in his post-game interview that he was keeping it. He was like, hey, that's my first touchdown pass. I'm keeping it. I'm like, no.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll see how that goes down.
Yeah, I think that they should fight over it a little bit more. Well, with that, that's this episode of Respect Her Game. Thank you guys so much for watching, and we will see you next week.